Hi, and welcome back to another dissection video. Today we are going to look at the Ulster Mary, which is the Alstroemeria. So I'm going to get out my art card. These are the typewriter alphabet art cards. So they're larger, they aren't coded, so I can make notes on them. And that's going to help us follow along in our dissection. So first thing we're going to do is look at the flower as a whole. So let's pick these guys back here. Try to get that up a little bit. All right, so here's our flower. It's a little wet from the base, but it has these really nice leaves all the way up. They're very thin. They're not super thin, which would be linear, but they're lanceolate. They're long and they have this pointed tip at the end. So that's how I know that. And then there are veins running. I'll show you down here. It's a little bit sad, but you can see the veins running straight along through the whole leaf. You can see the one in the center, but there aren't any veins branching off from it. So even if you look down here at the base, oh, that's not a very good one. So even if you look down at the base, you can see that all the veins are just running parallel all the way down. So when we have parallel venation, usually that tells us that we're looking at a monocot. We'll see if we can find any other clues as we go along. So the edges, the margin is what it's called, of this are smooth. So all the way around, it's very smooth. There aren't any bumps on it. Again, you can look at that in the camera. Sometimes they look like they're smooth, but they have tiny little hairs, and then they're ciliate, but this is not the case. So if you look at this whole flower inflorescence is just how the flowers are arranged on the stem. So if there were just one, it would be solitary, but there aren't. So then it's a whole bunch of different things that it could be. So this one happens to, hold on, let me look at my notes. This is a cyme inflorescence. So in cyme inflorescence, the flowers are growing from a central point, and I got that definition from the Flora book, which I love. So do you see this right here? You can probably see when I pull them apart from there, how they're all coming to one point. So they all start right here, and then they branch out from there. So cyme, and I'll put it down here so you can see it a little better. They're all coming out from that one central point. So we're gonna take one off from there, from that central point, and look at it a little more closely. So here's our flower. And the first thing, before we cut into it, we can notice that it has bilateral symmetry. And you can see that if you just cut right down the center, right here, then these two are the same, and these two are the same, and then there's the center one and the center one up here. So that is bilateral symmetry. And if you look at the three petals that are on the inside, the petals are the ones that are closest to the male and female parts in the center. And you look at the three that are on, I might try to zoom in a little. Yeah, there we go. So if you look at the three inner petals or tepals, these are the ones that are closest to the male and female parts. And those are generally called petals in dicots. But if it's a monocot, they're called tepals. So let's see if we can figure out which one they are. So here there are three that are on the inside. And then there are three that are on the outside. And they look pretty indistinguishable to me. So if you cannot tell the difference between the inner and the outer, then they're called tepals. And because this has an arrangement of three on the inside and three on the outside, that also makes me think monocot, because monocots really like groups of three. So all the signs are pointing towards this being a monocot, and it is. So let's cut into this and see. So I'm gonna cut it open a few different ways for you. The first thing we're gonna do is sort of break everything off of the outside. So here's our leaf. And then we're gonna take off these 3 outer tepals here. So that one was at the top. And then we had these 2. So those are they're called outer tepals. If it were a eudicot, then these would be the sepals. All right, and now we will take off the inner ones. So we have this one and this one. Those have our nectar guides on them. And then the bottom one, which just looks very much like the outer tepals. So you've got just these 2 special ones up here at the top. And then what's in the middle, all that's left are the male and female parts. So I'm gonna put this leaf over here. Yeah, I'll just do it on the side. Okay, so right here we have male and female parts of the flower. And how are we gonna tell the difference? Because unfortunately, some of our anthers have fallen off. So in the male part of a flower, you have a stamen, and a stamen has an anther and a filament, which are the long parts, and then the anther, which is the piece on the end. So let's take off one of these guys. So this is one of our stamens, or stamina. You're making it plural the Latin way. So only those 2 parts, filament, anther, and they do get the kind of bonus because the pollen is there on the end. So let's see how many there are of those guys. A couple more. And I'm taking them off from the outside because I know that at the very center of the flower is the pistil. So I'm going to take off everything that is around. So let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is exactly the same as the number of petals. So we'll just put one of these by each petal. And then some of them, as you can see, especially with flowers like this, they tend to lose their anthers. They're like hanging down and they just fall off, especially if they've already pollinated the flower or whichever flower they're supposed to be pollinating. Some flowers don't want to pollinate their own. Some stamen, the anthers don't want to pollinate the stigma here on the same flower, so they'll ripen at different times. So this stigma won't be ready to receive any of the pollen when the pollen's ready if it's not, if it doesn't want to pollinate itself. So what are you left with? This right here is the pistil, the whole thing. So this is covered up a little bit. I'll cut that off in just a minute. But here we have the stigma and then the style. And down here underneath this part is the ovary. So because the petals all started right here, then we know that this is an inferior ovary because it's below the line where all the petals are, or the tepals in this case. All right, so let's cut. I'm just going to cut it in half for now so you can see. I'll just cut down the stem. Ooh, it gets very tough right there. Okay, so right there, whoop, in the center, we have the ovary is right here at the base. And trying to make sure you guys can see it well. So here's the ovary. This is where all the little ovules are, and that will form seeds. So they attached here at the style. The stigma, sorry, sticky stigma here at the end. And can you see that there are 3 little pieces on there? It's really cool. Just like there are 6 of the anthers, sections of stigma, and they share this style, and then they go down into different little sections there in the ovary. All right, so we can just lay the other, other half of the ovary. I'll lay right there. All right, so this time we're gonna cut our flower a little differently. So one thing that's really cool that I just did for the first time with these guys is to do cross sections through the ovary. I think I did this because after we dissected the iris, I wanted to see the chambers a different way. So if you look on that one, we see that there are 3 chambers in the iris ovary, and I believe that's the case with this one. So I wanted to check it out and see if I could find them, and it's really difficult on these because they're a lot smaller and the ovaries aren't as ripe, so those ovules haven't really turned into seeds. They're still super tiny. All right, so let's take a look at this guy up close. So here is our Ulster Mary up close. You can see there's a little bit of pollen on there. So these are the nectar guides all along in here. You can really see that bilateral symmetry from here. It's really easy. So the bottom of it is actually also super gorgeous. So if you see these tepals, where they meet, they form these beautiful ridges and they go up over the ovary. So I'm going to show you a cross section through this. I'm just going to cut in layers down the ovary. It's actually really beautiful because you can still see all those ridges. So there's our flower. Yes, this one's really nice. Okay. Excellent. So I'll hold this up just a little bit more for you guys. So then you can kind of start to see the chambers within the ovary. And you can even see how it has those 3 sections in there, which is just really cool. So there were 6 petals, or 6 tepals. So those 6, well, would be 3 that would be petals and 3 that would be sepals, but they're all together tepals because they look just the same. And you can see even where they are on the ridge lines, you see how the 3 chambers in the center are right in between 3 of them. So that's just a way of looking at them that we haven't looked at them before. So I'll put those right underneath here. All right, so that's our second way that we're gonna do it, and then I'll do it one more way for you. So find it. All right, so here we go. There's an up close view. You can see that bilateral symmetry really well. Got these 2 inner tepals with the nectar guides on them. All right, so for this dissection, I am going to attempt to cut off each of these individually. And this leaf is a little bit in my way, so I'm going to take that off. Alrighty, so I'm going to slice through at the base and then just lift up underneath that ridge line. And then when I pull it, oh, it's so close. When I pull it off, they come with a stamen. So this whole piece is kind of stuck together. So we have all of these guys, and what we're left with is, again, the pistil. So the pistil has this stigma that gets sticky to attract the pollen. Then the pollen comes down the style and into the ovary. And I wonder if that happens in 3 different places, because there are 3 different stigmas and 3 different sections of the ovary. But you can see it pretty well right here, this green section, and now that everything is off from around the ovary, all those, the base of all the tepals are off. It starts to get really thin, and you can see right here all those little tiny ovules. You can kind of see through, and I'll just open it up a little bit more for you guys so we can see them more clearly, and that's coming off. There. There's our ovary, and here are let's see if we can get to some. See the little chambers? And then you can start to see where they all are here, and you can see the tiny little ovules all inside the ovary. So if you've ever done a flower dissection in a class or something, then you have probably used a really large lily, because they're easy. It's easy to see everything that's happening in there. So microscopes are really helpful, or glasses, or even a sort of camera that will magnify it for you. So see if you can find something like that, or maybe your eyes are really good. I did all of these drawings originally with no glasses. I remember one time putting glasses on. It was like a very big deal. So hopefully you can pull some apart yourself and see all the things that are in the inside. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye.